On any normal day, my guest is a normal Australian girl. She lives in a sleepy country town. She goes to the gym. She helps where she can as a registered nurse at the local hospital. But when she heeds the call to adventure, she dons the garb of a superhero. Sometimes she is Sailor Pluto from the cadre of magical warriors led by the mighty Sailor Moon. Sometimes she's the leader of the next generation of the Avengers' American Dream. Sometimes she is Supergirl. But always she is Vicky-Vic, cosplayer extraordinaire. Now, my listeners might not have heard of cosplay before now. It is an interesting and fun phenomenon that has cropped up in Australia over the last few years. It's a combination of costume making and it's got a little bit of play acting in there as well. A lot of folks would probably be familiar with the people who go to various science fiction conventions dressed in Starfleet uniforms from Star Trek. Except cosplayers are typically a lot more diverse. They rarely have the one costume, and it's rarely only from the one show or universe. Cosplayers often draw inspiration from Japanese popular culture, their animated cartoons, comics, and video games, which are consumed by all ages. Even then, though, you're just as likely to encounter a cosplayer dressed as Wolverine, the Joker, or the Master Chief. Cosplayers have kind of a unique place at pop culture conventions. You may have heard of the like down under with names like Supernova. In recent times, many companies have attempted to hire what is sometimes derogatively known as booth babes. Ladies hired basically to promote a product, be present at the booth, and entice attention. Cosplayers have almost entirely upstaged them in the recent past. Hired booth staff often cannot match a cosplayer's sheer enthusiasm for their source material. A cosplayer's care for their experience, the attention to detail that they put into making their costumes, and the stories they can tell of the process of making them put a booth hired staff member to shame when all they can say most of the time is, "This is the outfit that they gave me." And on that note, there is often a love of paying it forward. Many cosplayers will gladly tell anyone who is honestly curious about how they actually put their costumes together. And that's another main thing about cosplayers. Most of the time, even if their costume is bought, they will have modified it in some way. And in many cases, they will have made their costumes from scratch. In her time as a cosplayer, Vicky has rapidly risen to the forefront of the Australian scene. Her enthusiasm, her skill, and her fantastic results have garnered Vicky so much acclaim that pop culture conventions will invite her as a guest, much as they would an actor in a genre show, a game designer, a writer, or a comic book artist. In fact, Vicky is one of a triad of cosplayers who will be in my neck of the woods this July for Tropicon, Cairns' first pop culture convention, as guest judges for the con's cosplay competition. It is a pleasure to have her as a guest on my show as well. Vicky, thank you very much for coming on the Pay to Play podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So, tell me, what are you digging right at the moment?
So, TV show wise, gaming wise?
Absolutely anything wise. What is bringing a smile to your face right now?
Well, I am playing a big catch up right now. So we're up to season 5 of The Walking Dead, and I've never seen it in my life. So I am currently up to season 3, episode 13, and this is in the space of 4 days.
Bloody heck, that's one epic binge watching right there.
Oh, I've got to play catch up. Everyone's telling me the 5th season's more kick-ass than the last few seasons, so I've got to catch up sooner or later.
So will I suppose. I am still yet to see an episode of The Walking Dead myself, but, anything else right at the mo?
Really just starting to get prepared for some of the conventions that are coming up. So I just had a coffee with one of the cosplayers from Brisbane who's up here right now, Baby Alice Cosplay. She's up from Brisbane doing some work up here. So I just caught up with her this afternoon before I've had a chat with you. So we were just chatting about our group that we've organised for Supernova.
Oh, fantastic. So how many cosplayers are in the group that are going to be there?
Well, how many planets are in the solar system?
Well, I guess that depends on who's written the definition of planet that everyone's going by at the moment. But I think I get your reference, though.
Yeah, so we've got quite a bit of a group there. I believe at last count, I think we had about 13 or 14 people in the group.
Wow.
So we've got everyone from the Sailor Moon group except for Chibi Moon, which is a bit of a shame, but what can you do? Tuxedo Mask and Queen Beryl. So it's quite a big group.
Fantastic. So, how did you actually stumble across cosplay originally?
Wow, take me back. So I originally was a big gamer. So
Mm.
I used to play really RPGs. So I used to love Final Fantasy, and my favorite Final Fantasy game was Final Fantasy X. And I used to play that religiously. I ended up with about 300 hours plus on that one at least, and I was going back and replaying the game and leveling up more and more. And as you do,
Mm,
and
mm.
I got really hooked on the game, and I thought, how can I take my gaming further? And I was researching the characters, and I stumbled across someone dressed as the character, and it kind of sprung from there.
Mm.
I researched into what she was doing, and I stumbled across cosplay, and the rest has really been history.
It sounds like I did check out some interviews with you before we did this, and it seems like it was a little bit of a slow start. It seems as though it was 3 years between discovering cosplay and your first costume. So what sort of happened in that meantime?
So when I first discovered cosplay, I was in my last year of high school. So
Ah.
2009, I was in my last year of high school. So I went on to start studying my registration for a registered nurse. So
Mm.
that was in 2010. So a registered nurse takes 3 years to complete. So I studied that in Bundaberg, and that took me 3 years. And then I moved to a small sleepy town out west and did 2 years of work out there. And that's when I could start actually doing anything because I had a bit of money to spend.
Mm, mm.
Being a student, you have nothing.
Of course.
So I used my mum's sewing machine. I made my first costume, and away I went.
So tell me a little bit about that first costume. Was it the Final Fantasy one?
I actually bought my first costume.
Ah.
So I bought that costume, but my second costume was made. So the first costume I bought, it was an eBay purchase with a very dear friend of mine who helped me with that. And she
Ah.
recently just passed. So it was a bit raw. But
Mm.
she helped me get my first costume, and I'll be forever grateful for that. And so I modified that costume, made it more my own and more to the way I wanted it. Took that one, so it was the Final Fantasy costume.
Mhm.
And I also made a Captain America USO dancing girl from the first Avenger, and that was made with a lot of help. There was a Facebook group, and they set out patterns and how to do this and how to do that. And from scratch, I built a costume.
Fantastic. So it sounds like, and that's one thing I've noticed about the cosplay, pardon me, community. There is a lot of internal support in it. Everyone seems to be more than willing to help each other out. How's your experience of that been?
So I've had a couple of people ask me about, how I did my sewing for my American Dream costume.
Mm.
I've had a couple of people ask me about how I did my armor for the American Dream costume because there was quite a bit of different techniques used to make the American Dream costume.
Yeah, I have to
Uh,
say those arm greaves and the pads on the legs were on the boots were very impressive.
just a bit of gym floor mats.
Mm.
Yeah, a bit of gym floor mat and a and a heat gun and quite a lot of patience with painting. I am not the best painter.
Ah.
Um, but that was one of the difficult ones. And my Supergirl chest piece and underwear line piece
Mm.
were all made out of latex. And I actually received a lot of help via Skype and phone calls from CB Studios Cosplay. He's based in Brisbane, and he does a lot of casting latexes and fiberglass and resins. So I was contacting him quite regularly. Hey, I'm trying to do this. How would you recommend to do that? And he goes, oh, that's easy. And I'm like, yeah, for you, we're talking to someone here whose skills rely mainly on a sewing machine.
Mm. So can you tell me about your experience of actually going to your first convention and taking a costume with you and going out into public fully kitted out as it were?
So my first supernova was in the RNA Showgrounds back in I think it was, what, 2012? Yeah, 2012. So it was still at the RNA Showgrounds. Last year was its first time at the Brisbane Entertainment and Convention Centre. So it was back at the RNA Showgrounds. It was rainy. It
Mm.
was not covered. It was hot. It was humid, and there was a lot of people.
Oh, lovely.
So you're shoving a lot of people into a confined space, and you're trying to run between pavilions between the rain,
Oh.
shuffling past crowds, being all hot and sweaty in
Mm.
costumes. Would never take any of it back though. It was just amazing. A bit overwhelming because it's your
Mm.
first convention and you're having nearly 30,000 people through the gates, and that's 30,000 people you've never met before. And it's a bit confronting.
Mm. Mm.
I remember meeting CB Studios to cosplay for the first time on the Sunday, and that was before he'd set his page up. And it was, I think, just after that I found his page, and I took a photo of him, like, nice Captain Jack Sparrow costume. Take a photo. We're now friends on Facebook and we chat regularly, so go figure.
Yeah. Um, since then, though, the con scene, I would say, I know that Supernova has been going for a good few years, but I imagine at least you've been able to attend other cons where the situation was a little bit more amenable to walking around in costume.
Amenable, uh, easier, or a bit more.
Yes, a little bit more forgiving and permitting, as it were.
Yeah, so last year was my first small convention. So
Mm.
there was a new convention popped up last year called Sugar City Con, and that was
Yes.
in Mackay.
Mm.
So I was helping with the organizing on that one, and that was a lot of fun to do. I lived about 3 hours west of Mackay at the time, and I
Yeah.
live 4 hours south of Mackay now. But still in the same area, Nelly.
Mm.
So that was a lot of fun. So we were expecting about 300 people to come through the gates. We had 1,200. So
Wow.
the PCYC was big, but I still got this feeling of supernova. So there was still, the brushing past each other and wow, it's a bit confined in here, but
Yeah.
wow, it was an amazing experience because it was only the 1,200 people. It was a small convention. It was tight knit. Everyone knew everyone in the cosplay community there. There was a lot of support. There was amazing cosplays that I got to see that
Mm.
day. And we had some amazing guests come up, and it was a great con, and I'm glad that Sugar City Con has continued on to this year as well.
Mm. Yes, it's amazing to see the spread of pop culture nowadays. I mean, I mentioned a little earlier on Tropicon, which of course you're one of the guests of, and there was, you always couldn't help but maybe be a little bit skeptical that a pop culture convention could really happen in Cairns. The guy who runs it, Charlie Kennel, actually got a fair bit of local press mileage from, a couple of petitions that he did trying to get Supernova to actually set up a local branch. And I think when that didn't work out, he just sort of said, well, stuff that. If you want to get something done, do it yourself. And you were, of course, living in an out of the way part of Australia. I mean, can you tell me what that experience is like? Perhaps maybe some of the challenges of making cosplay costumes where you are, and then having to get from where you're living out to the location of the con.
Okay, so last year for me, to get to a convention, if I wanted to drive to a convention, it was a 12-hour drive down to Brisbane from where I lived. The halfway point was my parents' place.
Oh boy.
So used to stop in and say good day to my parents for a night. Free food, free bed. Hells yes. So hi mum, hi dad, just casually stopping in for the night. See you a couple of days. We'll be back. I'll be stopping through again. So that always goes down well. It was a good way to say hi and bye real quick. But it was a 12-hour drive, or if not, I could drive 110 kilometers to the closest airport in Emerald and fly from Emerald to Brisbane, which was about an hour and a half on the plane, and then hope to God that someone would pick me up at the airport and take me back to their place to stay the night. So it was interesting doing it that way. I preferred to drive because then I could pick up friends along the way and they could help pay for fuel and keep me entertained, and it was always a bit of fun.
Hmm.
So it's quite a bit of a drive to get to a convention for me, but it's still a bit of a drive. And for me now, actually, I'm still about 7 or 8 hours north of Brisbane. And I'm about 10 hours. No, it's about 10 hours south of Cairns. I'm not completely sure. I haven't driven to Cairns from where I am at the moment in a very, very long time, but I'm very excited to be making the trip soon. Uh, so in Cairns, Rockhampton, Townsville, the big cities along the way, you've got your spotlights.
Mm.
So you got lots of places that you can go buy materials, and you've got your Masters and your Bunnings, so you can buy everything really easily. Where I was last year, I would be lucky enough to buy material. If I was lucky, the news agency sold some basic cotton. We had a Mitre 10, which was pretty good for paint supplies, but if I needed anything, it was straight to the internet, or if I was down the Sunshine Coast at the time, was to stock up on material. So it's quite a bit of a hassle to get things out to where I am. Everything takes a couple of days extra shipping.
Mm.
Sometimes it costs a little bit extra to do the shipping as well. So if you're shipping from the United States, it's a pain in the ass, especially with the Australian dollar the way it is.
Yes. Imagine it must have been nice a year or two ago when we had almost parity with the dollar, but now, of course, things have dropped again.
So much internet shopping that time. I
Uh,
remember I loved internet shopping about a year ago. It was the best thing in the world. Now it's a bit, can I source that in Australia? So my American Dream fabric's what, $8 a meter? It's the shipping that costs the most.
ooh.
There's shipping that's really pricey.
Mm.
But it's all worth it in the end. And
Mm.
you shop smart, shop ahead, plan in advance. It's amazing.
Mm.
So yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, I was going to say, tell me about, and this is, I would suppose, always a hard question to ask, because I imagine in a way, they must be like your kids. Tell me about some of your favourite cosplays that you've put together.
Okie dokie. Well, it is really hard to choose between children because I've got so many in my closet right now. Um, to put my costumes together. So I made the USO dancing girl from Captain America: The First Avenger 3 times.
Hmm.
So I'd have to say she's probably one of my most favorite costumes. I'm actually going down to Brisbane shortly to reshoot her with one of my favorite photographers. So I'm going to have a bit of fun with that one. Um, American Dream is very, very popular with people who follow me on my page.
Mm.
The photos I did with Carlos Mayenko, cosplay photographer, they're just amazing. And I think the shield's a big hit too, being signed by Stan Lee, the creator of the Marvel Universe. So
I can
that's
imagine.
always that's always a very big popular one.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Oh yeah, the shield is so treasured right now. It's wrapped up in its bubble wrap in its case, hidden in the back of my wardrobe so no one can find it.
Ah,
Um, that one was really popular, but a lot of people liked the Supergirl photos as well, and the costume was so much fun to run around in. It was really cool compared to wearing American Dream. American Dream was very, 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 very hot to wear on Brisbane Saturday at Brisbane Supernova last year. I actually came close to a point where I was going to
oh
collapse.
dear.
It's very hot wearing boots, spandex, arm guards, corset, wig, and gloves. So the only place that heat can escape is your fingertips and your face. So the main places that sweat escape and heat escape are through your hair and on your feet and your palms, and that
Oh,
was all covered. So it was very hot. But out of all of them, I'd say my USO girl is probably my most favorite cosplay. But that will probably change in a couple of years when I have more costumes and other experiences in those costumes.
mm.
And uh, there's always going to be the one. And I'd always say my first cosplay that I made would be my favorite. So the USO girl is most definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah. No, there's nothing like that time when it's all still very new, isn't it? And you almost find yourself chasing those moments again. But as you get more, as you, of course, you've learned and you've gotten more experienced, and it's never quite the same, is it?
No, it's not. But every time you do something new or you meet new people or go somewhere new for a convention, it's
Mm.
always a new experience. So when I went down to Sydney, I went to Sydney Supernova last year. That was my first interstate convention.
Mm.
I went down to Sydney and it just felt like a brand new convention all over again. Like Supernova was completely new again. So it was just wow, a complete overhaul of what I knew as Supernova going to a new city. And it was the same this year with Brisbane Supernova going to the Brisbane Convention Centre.
Mm.
It was a complete change to the RNA showgrounds where it was hot, musty, and it was tended to rain.
Yeah.
And you're getting wet between pavilions, which meant stuffing up your makeup or your wig
Mm.
falls apart or that paper mache that you put on your shoulder pad. Yeah, that's not paper mache anymore. So it's a big change and it was a surprise. And anything that Supernova or a convention throws at you that's new, it always makes the convention experience different.
Mm. One thing you brought up a little earlier on was doing photo shoots in cosplay with cosplay photographers. How did those come about, and what is that side of the cosplay scene like, as opposed to the more, I guess, the generally more public and event-based nature of going to conventions?
So, when you're walking around a convention, oh, I like your costume. Let's take a photo. Yeah,
Mm.
that's really awesome. I love it when people come up to me and say, hey, I really love your costume. I know this character. It's one of my favorites. Hey, let's get a photo. That's really amazing. And I love getting photos back from fans. So I've received like a couple messages back. Hey, I got a photo with you. We look awesome in this photo. Thought I'd share it back to you. And I love getting those photos back just as much as the ones that I get done professionally by the convention photographers. So there are photographers who come who are just photographers who want to take photos of something different. But then there are those people who specialize in cosplay photography as well and who also work as other types of freelance photography on the side.
Mm.
So I suppose when people started making costumes, someone's going to probably come along and go, hey, that's pretty cool. I'd like to get a photo of that. And I guess it's developed from there where people just specialize in taking photos of people who want to make these costumes. So there are some really amazing photographers out there, and a couple of them are just incredible. I love working with Carlos Mayenko. I love working with Lorenzo So, Forgotten Memories. What a Big Camera. He's a Sydney-based one. I think Carlos has actually moved to Sydney as well, so he's more Sydney-based now, which is a shame because I miss him heaps. There's a photographer I was using up in Mackay. There's a couple up there. So one of them, I go to her studio and I pay her to do photos there. At a convention, photos are normally done for free. Some photographers get in on as a media pass, so they just come in and they just take photos, and others just come for the enjoyment of photos. They just love to take photos and they want to get better at the skill that they're doing. So so one of the photographers I'm doing a photo shoot with very shortly is Rebecca Burton Photography. So at a convention, she'd just do the photos for free because she's there, she's wanting to be there, she's taking photos, it's what she's there for. So I've organized a shoot with her outside of a convention, so I am paying her, so it's a paid shoot. And to be honest, I can't wait to shoot with her. She's a really good friend of mine, and we're going to have a lot of fun.
Sounds like it'll be one heck of a good time.
Oh, it's always a party with the people that are lined up for this shoot. It's gonna be a lot of derp shots.
Well, which I have the feeling will probably make their way onto Facebook anyway, as well as the approved for release ones, as it were.
Oh yeah, there are some derp photos that will never see the light of day, but then there are the ones that do see the light of day, and you sit there and go, "I'm glad that actually came out." Now, I have seen a few.
Well, anyway. One of the interviews I read with you was by a blog called Titans of Cosplay, and they started their interview with the line, "There is no greater honor than having the chance to interview one of your favorite cosplayers." You have built one heck of a name for yourself. You have over 3,000 likes on your Facebook page, so you've got one heck of a following. And nowadays, you aren't just a person who goes to cons. Convention organizers invite you. Can you tell me a little bit about what that's like?
So when I got the message from Charlie, I was very shocked that he wanted to have me up as a guest, because I'm just I see myself as just an average cosplayer. I'm just someone who goes to a convention, has a page, and wants to share what I do, and that's just me. I'm cool with that. I'm
Hmm.
happy with that. Wow, I've got 3,000 followers. That's pretty wicked. But I'm only doing the costuming for the fun. And when he said, "Hey, we want you to come up, be a guest, and help host the cosplay competition with Berserk," and I was like, "Uh, are you sure you want me?" I mean, there are some really other talented people down in Brisbane. You could, ask them. Are you sure you want me? And he's like, "Yeah, we want you." So I was then later told that he had Evie Dante's Inferno coming up from Sydney, and I was like, wow, okay, yep, this is going to be fun. And then when he told me that Twerk and Gherkin was coming up as well, I was shocked. So I'm so glad that Twerkin's coming up. She's amazing. I'm loving her work at the moment. She's becoming such an incredible cosplayer,
Mm.
and she's so much fun to be around. So it's
Mm.
it's an amazing lineup, and there's also one other cosplayer coming up from Brisbane as well, Liam McLeod, Brisbane's 11th Doctor. So he's helping me co-host. So we're doing the intros and saying g'day to everyone and asking them some silly little questions and helping them out on stage. So it's going to be amazing. I'm very excited to be going up to Cairns and being part of something like this.
Mm. Well, it seems like, as you might have mentioned already, the idea of having you as a guest has spread. You mentioned already that you were part of the organising team for last year's Sugar City Con, and next thing we know, you've posted their announcement on your page that once again you are going to be a name card guest at the show.
Yes, that was a bit of a shock as well. So I'm again on the organizing committee for Sugar City Con, but they also said to me, "Hey, can we also have you as a guest?" And I'm like, can we? Are we allowed to do that?" And they're like, "I don't see why not."
Mm.
So you're gonna do the cosplay comp, right? And I'm like, okay, I can do that. Sure, let's do this. So two small conventions that are rising up in the community. Sugar City Con is going to be amazing. Tropicon is going to be spectacular. I'm very excited for what Sugar City Con's doing. I just actually saw an announcement tonight. I was actually thinking it was going to get announced next week, but all right, but it got announced tonight that we've got the zombie run happening on the same weekend of the Sugar City Con. So
Wow.
we've organised with the Zombie Run team that was just in Rockhampton this weekend. So there's a zombie run happening just after the convention finishes on the weekend there on the 29th.
Okay, now
So I'm hoping I've got that date right, the 29th. There is so much happening this year at the moment.
no worries. I can always check it out and put it in the show notes. Now, I got to ask, I've heard of a zombie shuffle, which is, of course, where people cosplay effectively as zombies, and well, I'm not sure. Well, shuffle, for want of a better word, um, through the streets of a town. So, what makes the difference between a zombie shuffle and a zombie run? I mean, it's almost conjuring images of something like a tough mudder or a warrior dash, just with a zombie theme.
So the one that's coming to Sugar City Con is Zombie Escape Australia.
Uh-huh.
So basically, the Great Zombie Escape is going to happen. So I believe what they're going to do is they'll have a run of normal people, and then they'll have a run of zombies trying to catch them. So I believe that's what a run is. I believe a shuffle is more of a everyone gets dressed up and we march along and scare the living daylights out of everyone that's
Yeah.
normal. I haven't attended one, so I'm very excited to be attending the one after the Sugar City Con. So it's going to be interesting.
Right. So what do you think you're going to be? You're going to be a chasee or a chaser?
Probably be a chasey. I mean, so I'd like to be a chaser, but I don't think I could get one of my costumes all gory. So I think I
Mm,
might just run away from the zombies,
mm, mm.
corset and all.
um, Now, one thing I was going to ask about, the podcast is called Pay to Play, and just generally without going to specifics, have you seem, from the sounds of things, you seem to be happy to be staying pretty much keeping your cosplay on the basis of you being a fan, but as your name is building and you are being invited as a guest, where does that sort of place you on the pay-to-play continuum? Are you finding that some of the expenses that you would otherwise, and please, if you don't feel comfortable talking about this, let me know. But are you finding that some of the expenses you would otherwise have to face are sort of covered?
Um, they're not really covered. It's more of a hobby. So you know
Mm,
how some people prefer to go fishing and they don't get anything out of fishing except the fact that they get to catch the fish and
yeah.
take it home and eat it.
Mm,
Well, that actually it's productive in a way,
yeah.
unless they're sports fishing when they just release it back into the water.
Mm,
But so I don't get paid to do anything I do. I just love
mm,
doing cosplay for me. It's a hobby.
yeah.
It's better than spending all my money on alcohol.
Mm,
So
mm.
it's kind of like my alcohol. I spend my money on designing costumes and doing something productive for myself that I
Mm.
really enjoy. And it's going well. But I have had a couple of people ask me, "Hey, are you going to open up a print store? Because your giveaways are great and all, but we always miss out. So I want this print, but I can never get it because I don't win your giveaway." So I've had a couple of people ask me to open a print store, but I don't know the finer details of
Mm.
opening a print store, so that's something to look into in maybe the next year or so.
No worries. It would seem at the very least a good way of defraying some of those expenses of being a cosplayer. Um, and I have spoken to a couple of people who have. I've actually spoken to one cosplay photographer whose episode will probably be up shortly before yours. A fellow by the name of Beefy, who at the moment he's pretty much making his living off cosplay photography. So yeah, it does seem like an avenue that even if you're not looking to seriously monetize it, at least cover some of those expenses. So at least maybe some of the stuff that you get from the US is a little bit more affordable.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Hmm.
No, I haven't had a chance to work with Beatty Photography, but wow, I really do enjoy looking at his work. It's
Hmm.
just incredible, especially the evolutions that he's done with Jessica Niguri over in the United States. They're just incredible photos. She's probably one of my cosplay heroes, Jessica Niguri. So
Hmm.
just watching him work with her is like, wow.
Yeah, I've got to admit, I'm not very well versed in Pokemon, but it seems one heck of an incredible cosplay to basically take this concept of a magical creature and turn it into, for want of a better word, a themed ceremonial dress that's still, if you look at it, you'll go, oh yeah, yeah, okay, that's an Umbreon or a Leafeon or a Flareon. That makes sense, yeah. Um,
Yeah, no, it's a great concept, and it's hard to take something that is in an animal form and then make it into something that you can wear and still look human. So,
mm,
I love what Jessica Niguri's done with the costumes. She pulls them off so well, and
mm,
the design and the concept is a really brilliant idea. And I believe a lot of people are inspired by her work and are going on to do their own costume versions of Pokemon as well, pretty much similar to what Jessica's doing, which is it's amazing how much people can influence other people. And I love watching how the cosplay community is developing through watching some of our biggest and most favorite cosplayers develop their own styles. So, Jessica, Yaya Han, Eve Beauregard, one of our own Australian cosplayers, it's amazing watching them and what they do and how they go about designing things. So, it's quite exciting.
mm. Well, as we're coming toward the end of our chat, there are a couple more things I'd like to ask you. The first is if there were three things that you perhaps wish someone could have told you at the beginning of your discovery and exploration of cosplay that might have helped you along the way, and that perhaps you could pass on to someone who is also looking at feeling the urge to get to work making their own costume, what would you tell them?
One, there will be a lot of tears, a lot of late nights, and a lot of stress. Two, everyone in the cosplay community is there to help. No matter who they are, just send them a message. They're not going to reply back and be snarky. They're going to be like, oh, that's cool. So, what do you need my help with? I can give you some tips and ideas on how I did things. So, I've had a couple of people do that for me, and I'm happy to do the same thing. I love giving out advice. Three, we're all in it for fun. That's what we're here for. We love doing what we're doing, and that's why we're here.
Hmm. And where can people find you if they're looking for you
Um,
online?
So they can find me on my Facebook page, which is just Vicky-Vic, so Vicky-Vic. Or the URL is http www.facebook.com// Vicky-Vic cosplay. So you can find me on there. I've got a Twitter account, an Instagram account, a Tumblr account, but I rarely get on Tumblr unless I'm posting up a tutorial on how I did something. Instagram, I pop on there regularly for just, hey, look at this, I took this today, but I'm not going to bother you guys on Facebook because I don't want to annoy you with this kind of crap.
Mm.
And then there is my Twitter account, which I pop on there occasionally and annoy the cosplayers that I like to follow and ask them silly little questions and what's on their mind and how they did little things. So Instagram, they're all great social media accounts, and I love using my Facebook account to keep in touch with a lot of the other cosplayers from around the world. So it's always a great one to do.
Mm. You'll have to forgive me. I just realised I do have two more questions I have to ask, and I have to thank Danny Hinton, aka Battlestar Blondie Cosplay, for actually putting in a good word on my behalf with you, so sort of making this chat happen. Thanks again, Danny. She responded to our mutual call for questions today, and she wants me to ask you, firstly, what are your next projects?
Well, she already knows what one of my current projects is. I mean, she's part of the group. That's right, Jupiter. I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
So I recently posted up my lineup for Gold Coast Supernova. So I'm currently working on Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. And I'm also working on a gender bend version of Captain Jack Sparrow.
Because
So
why bloody not?
why bloody not? And we're gonna have a bit of fun. Mr. Gibbs is going to be at Supernova. So I think we've got a pretty good Pirates of the Caribbean crew lined up for Saturday, so that's going to be good. I'm also part of another group for Brisbane Supernova at the end of the year, which is ages away, but it's good to be prepared because it's going to be a very advanced costume. So I'm in a group for that. It's not secret. It's a Sailor Moon group again.
Mm-hmm.
It's the thing this year. Sailor Moon is the thing right now. So I'm very excited with that. I'm going to work on Final Fantasy X costume again, one of Yuna's outfits. So I'm very excited to be touching back to why I initially started cosplay again. And I can't remember what the other few costumes I had planned for the year were, but they're in my list and I've got them there, sitting there waiting for me to start them. So there's quite a lot going on this year.
Mm. And of course, the second question is, how keen are you, Vicky-Vic, for some Sailor Scout awesome?
Well, after having coffee with Carly, baby Alice cosplay today, we finished maybe 3 hours ago our coffee. We'd sat down for about 3.5 hours at the coffee club. I am very, very, very extremely excited to be going down to Gold Nova, and I cannot personally wait for Sunday to be my Sailor Pluto, which I'm going to be finishing up tomorrow morning. So I'm very excited. I cannot really wait to see everyone's gorgeous faces in their Sailor Scouts because everyone's been working so hard on those cosplays. So I'm very, 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 very excited. And I'm really hoping that the voice actor for our Tuxedo Mask, when we go line up and go see him, we'll be just like, well, I've got the entire Sailor Scout group. What you guys got? What you guys got? So hoping for something like that. But it's going to be amazing. I'm very, very, very excited.
Sounds like it is going to be one heck of a year for you. So, Vicky-Vic, keep fighting evil by moonlight and winning costume competitions or judging them by daylight. It has been a blast having you on the Pay to Play podcast. Thank you once again for your time.
No, thank you so much, Rob, for having me here.